The release of Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord has been quiet, compared to when the project appeared in the Steam Early Access 2.5 years ago. Judge for yourself, then the average daily online was about 1000 people for almost a month. Then it gained stability, having decreased by about 5 times, and now, at the release, it hardly get beyond 50,000. And it is still unknown in which direction the indicator will change further. But why? Was the final version worse than the beta? No. The developers from the Tailforce studio kept their promises and tried to fix all the shortcomings of the early builds. Has a worthy alternative appeared against the background of which the Turkish project has lost its freshness and does not look so adventurous? Also, past Bannerlord is still a new game, and another one is unlikely to appear in the near future. So what are the reasons? Well, let's try to find them. At the same time, we will make the final verdict. Calradia is huge, from the sultry deserts to the northern George. From the endless steppes to the seas, it is expanse range. The continent, despite its size, is dependently populated, and life does not stop on it for a minute. Trade caravans stir along the roads, gangs of robbers hide in the forest, peasant cars regularly supply cities, and castles with supplies and flowering fields often become the scene of bloody battles, in which hundreds and thousands are killed and wounded. Whom to become in this world living according to its own laws. A mercenary who gather a troop of fortune hunters and serve a highest bidder. Perhaps it will be possible to rise to the rank of nobility and swear elegance to one of the powerful rules. Or to take a swing at the throne yourself, having won the right to the crown and scepter. Or do you prefer the fate of a merchant who leads huge caravans with a precious cargo through all Calradia and who scales even king's envy? What is closer to you? Knightly glory obtained in battles and tournaments, or the field that covers everyone at the mere mention of your name? The name of a robber who collects tribute from the half the country will not hesitate to attack a small army. Another sandbox with a similar freedom of choice is unlikely to be found. I don't want to get into specifics, listings by facts, how many characters upgrade benches are here, what types of weapons heroes can use, and why it's better to build your own city this way and not otherwise. Bannerlord is good because it remains a medieval fairy tale, despite the abundance of interconnected mechanisms. On the other hand, these mechanics are so deep that without grades and bumps stuffed from their own experience, one can dream of dominating Calradia. Nevertheless, you can play without endure perseverance on the principle of how it goes. Usually it turns out to be no less exciting adventure, albeit without achieving lofty goals. And one more thing, there is another drop of magic in this world. An important factor for those who want to immerse themselves in a medieval setting without a fantasy set on edge. All the life paths of the character, from a bandit to a king, are available to anyone. The first layer of the gameplay is responsible for this, which unfolds on the global map, in dialogue scenes and in the character and clan management interface. Our hero travels around Calradia, recruits troops, trades, manages his own possessions, talk with other characters, gradually acquire friends and associates, and can even find a life partner. But what is the Middle Ages without large-scale battles at nightly duels? Any fight from a one-on-one duel to a huge battle with thousands of participants is not just a confrontation of number reflecting the number of soldiers and the characteristics of weapons, but an impressive scene to match the best films about medieval battles. And the player is in a thick of the confrontation, almost the same value as the others. You can cut enemies with your own hands or shoot at them with a bow and crossbow. Sometimes you have to comment, not like in strategies, from a distance and with a view from above, but sitting in the saddle with a sword and the ready. Immersion in this atmosphere of the medieval battle is complete, from the moments when the equestrian detachment and full gallops cut into a dance, infantry information or archers on command fire a volley of arrows. It takes your breath away. Fun Game Studio. What is most interesting is that these two games, so different from each other, do not conflict. One does not seem like an appendage of the other, as is often in case with projects that aim in a multi-genre gameplay. Experience affects Tale Wars despite its almost 20-year history. Did not do anything other than Mount and Blade. Yet she had created Bannerlord from scratch. She would hardly have been able to achieve such a thoroughly study and take into account all these little things. This is a consistent work that developers are complements the ideas of the debut parts of the series. But the authors have something to strive for. For example, in Calradia, no one has yet mastered shipbuilding. Sea and river travel and battles are the first candidate for the DLC, and I would like to believe there will definitely be supplements. I will note the excellent work of the artist. The political structure of Calradia absorbed the main medieval images, and the design emphasizes these recognizable features. Take the same kingdoms and their population. In the south of the continent, typical Arabs riding camels and in turbans. In the east, nomads. In the north, Vikings. It turns out not to overdo it, despite the obvious anarchism. Such a combined hodgepodge looks obtrusive and contributes to immersion in the atmosphere of Middle Ages. If you do not suffer from excessive craving for rivets, of course a diff knight's helmet to the tournaments still looks superfluous on a foot archer. On the other hand, purely technology, the graphics of stars from the sky are not enough. Yes, it adequately reflects the entire spectrum of medieval reality, but it's outdated even in early access. It is hardly worth reproaching the developer for this. First of all, this is an unavailable compromise between beauty and performance. Do not forget about thousands of battles. When talking about Mount and Blade 2, it's hard for me to keep an open mind. I know her too well. I spent many hours in Calradia, and my first experience with series took place more than 15 years ago. It should be understood that this project is not one of these that you can go through once and forget. No, you return to Calradia from time to time, try new character builds, experiment with composition of the army and ways to achieve goals. Fortunately, the vast of opportunities only contributes to such experiments. The uniqueness of the game is no longer so impressive. Besides, the series is developing linearly without sharp bursts of the major changes in entire history. I can only remember the addition of multiplayer to Mount and Blade formats. Yes, and Bannerlord itself. If you think about it, it's nothing more than a version of the same warband brought to the mind. Not a remaster, of course, but the main innovation relates to the technical component and convenience. What's more, the same story is repeated in miniature on the Bannerlord journey, from early access to a release. What the patches for 2.5 years included: bug fixes, balance changes, new locations, items and characters, plus features familiar from the previous parts of the series and modifications of them. Only the system of hairs and improvements in battles are drawn to serious innovation, and even then with reservation this was already in fashion. By the way, it is worth talking about them separately. The early announcement of a Bannerlord played a cruel joke with the moves. No one wanted to make modification for warband. Why? If a new part is about to be released, the tools are better and there will be more prospects for a major project. At the time, warband was technically outdated. However, time passed and the developers were in no hurry to release the sequel. It happened only 10 years after the announcement. Full support for modification using the Steam Workshop has appeared quite recently. It is clear that this situation is far from the best way affected the quality of mods. How many of the promising projects have not seen the light? One can only guess. It's not in vain that I pay so much attention to this. Mount and Blade mods have always been impressive. Several full-fledged games have grown out of them, and the developers peeped the lion's share on Bannerlord's future from modders. Of the modifications that have already been released, the two are worth mentioning: the RPG and Bannerlord Online. The first is dedicated to online battles in which the player earns gold and experience needed to buy equipment and upgrade skills. The second one is even more interesting. It transfers all aspects of the single-player campaign to a multiplayer, retaining the features of the original, from traveling on a global map to a large-scale battles, almost a real MMORPG. And the network mode in the normal Bannerlord has long been abandoned. This has also affected the relatively low popularity for such a remarkable game.